COP26 has arrived. Over the next 2 weeks, Glasgow will host what is being billed as humanity's last best chance to keep global warming under 1.5 degrees Celsius. With so much at stake, will COP26 be able to deliver? The United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP26, is being hosted by the UK in Glasgow, recently titled the Global Green City. Over 200 countries will work together to set ambitious global climate change targets. A new COP takes place every year, but this one is especially important. As outlined in the Paris Agreement, every 5 years all nations must agree to enhanced ambitions, setting new, ambitious targets for the future. The current goals are to keep global average temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Each country must also regularly report on how they are helping to achieve these aims. As COP hosts, the UK is asking countries to achieve global net zero emissions by 2050 and set ambitious 2030 emission reduction targets. If COP26 fails and global temperatures exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius, climate change will become unprecedented, widespread, rapid, intensifying, and most importantly, irreversible. There is no doubt about it, COP26 is the final opportunity for the world to turn the tide on anthropogenic climate change.
This is our last chance, our best chance. Young people are striking for the climate and for a safer world. They know this. The workers who are demanding a just transition know this. The businesses who are frankly far outstripping governments when it comes to climate targets and actions know this. It's time for the government to recognise that we can all win, that to successfully rise to the challenges facing us all, to seize this chance is perfectly possible with the political will, and if we don't do it, then we will never be forgiven by history.
It's time for humanity to grow up.
At the UN in September, Boris Johnson sounded optimistic about the chances of COP26 being a success.
The Glasgow COP26 summit is the turning point for humanity. We must limit the rise in temperatures, whose appalling effects were visible even this summer, to 1.5 degrees. We must come together in a collective coming of age. We must show that we have the maturity and wisdom to act. And we can.
Fast forward to late October, the Prime Minister sounded less confident of delivering the necessary pledges.
It's going to be very, very tough, this summit. And I'm very worried because it might go wrong. And we might not get the agreements that we need. And it's touch and go.
Why will the 1.5 degree goal be so difficult to achieve? As COP26 begins, some of the world's biggest polluters are still yet to align their nationally determined contributions, also known as NDCs, with COP26's emission goals. Take China, for example, responsible for around 27% of world CO2 emissions. At the UN in September, Xi Jinping said China will strive to peak carbon dioxide emissions before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. It is hardly a commitment enshrined in law, and not even enough to meet COP26's 1.5 degree purpose. COP26 President Alok Sharma stressed NDCs are COP26's biggest hurdle.
All the G20 committed to come forward with ambitious enhanced NDCs before COP26. So the ball is in their court, and that's the big ask that we have for all of them.
What are the biggest obstacles to getting the deal that you want to achieve?
Well, as I said, I think in terms of emission reductions, we need to see those NDCs coming forward.
If global warming is somewhat inevitable, then a reset on humanity's relationship with nature may be a more realistic goal within reach. Protecting and restoring our ecosystems, a key goal of COP26, should be seen as both achievable and an important step in adapting to our changing climate.
In order to meet net zero, we're going to have to restore peatlands at scale to get anywhere near meeting that target. The government has made pledges for peatland restoration, but it's not enough. And if you bring in the resilience angle, the other problem we have is that with climate change, peatlands are at risk of being destroyed due to hotter, drier conditions, which is what we expect to see over the next 30 years or so. So maybe around 2/3 of upland peatlands would be at risk of being lost altogether by 2050 due to climate change, unless they are being restored as well, because it makes them more resilient to the changes that are already inevitable. So unless we're restoring peatlands and making them more resilient, we'll lose them anyway, and that will lead to increased emissions. So you can't disentangle these things. These things all fit together in terms of how we meet net zero.
COP26 is our last chance to limit global warming under 1.5 degrees. In truth, we are fighting an uphill battle, but the fight against climate change does not simply stop there. COP26 won't solve the climate emergency, but it is a chance to make a real difference.
It can often feel quite hopeless. The size of the problem is so huge. I think it can be very frightening for everyone. And you can feel quite hopeless about being able to do anything, but every single little bit of avoided emissions counts. And that's a really important point to make. Anything that the public can do, that you can do as an individual or a household, will make a difference. There will be an avoided impact because of it.